So let's take a moment to stop raging for just a second about our current administration in the United States and celebrate that they approved a $1 billion solar project in the Nevada desert, or Nevada, depending on if you're actually from there, that is going to be the biggest solar project in the United States.
Wow.
It's a 690 megawatt project with, where is it, a 380 megawatt battery storage.
Ooh.
Which is pretty,
Wonder who's
pretty
going to
cool.
win that contract.
Yeah, so this is will serve NV Energy, part of Warren Buffett's Berkshire Hathaway conglomerate. So Nevada is trying to get to 50% renewables by 2030, so they got 10 years for that, and 100% clean energy by 2050. And it says the power from this would feed Las Vegas and potentially additional areas in Southern California. So there was a little bit of... this is actually Sun Edison is what's going to be running this, but there was a little bit of controversy over this because... it's taking up so much land, and there was like it kind of goes against some of the conservation projects that are going on out there, but it got passed by the Bureau of Land Management. It will be the 8th largest solar plant in the world, according to the statement. It's going to create a peak of 900 construction jobs and support an additional 1,100 jobs in the area, and could be done by 2022.
Whoa.
Wow.
That's quick. I just had the biggest hypocrite moment for myself where I'm like, I remember there's talks about some federal land being used for energy, and I remember thinking like, of course they're selling off bits of preservation land for oil and stuff, and then it's like, no, they're actually selling off bits of federal land for solar farms, and I'm like, but wait, like, how do I actually feel about this?
I don't know how to feel now.
Yeah.
Well,
wait.
so there's so right here it says that some clean energy groups have called this like basically a devil's bargain because it is opening up this land for solar, but also for oil and gas.
Mm-hmm.
So, so you're right to be mixed on it. But it says the Gemini project would offset 385,000 metric tons of carbon dioxide, or the greenhouse emissions of 83,000 cars.
What, a year or?
Oh, well, it doesn't say per year.
I was going to say that's not that much.
Well, I guess that it wouldn't be. They're both a unit of like emission. So I guess 83,000 cars on the road a year, or whatever. Emitting versus
Versus how many people live in Las Vegas? Like 5 million.
But that still is a removing 83,000 cars from the road.
I'm good with it. But the interesting thing here, and I was working on a video about this. It's funny, actually, me and Andy Sly both had parallel thinking on the same idea about like what actually causes climate change, or humans, like what activities do we participate in that we could change to really have an impact. And he found a study that gave that exact answer. I was going about it and doing research on my own, and I found that the data I saw showed that 80% of greenhouse gases are caused by energy, not by agriculture, not by transportation. So like when we say, I'll fly less because flying is so terribly bad, you're like, yeah, but it is such a tiny percent of actual greenhouse gases. It wouldn't really make any difference. Same with like eating, not eating meat. Yes, sure. It is, directionally the right thing, but overall it's not a huge amount of a big polluter compared to energy. And so when you see this, I'm super excited about these. That's why actually this website, Green Tech Media, I'm super hot on, because they're all about this stuff. And thankfully, they have backing of a big media company that can pay for this, because no one is interested in this stuff.
Like not as much as they should be.
They're going to have to go the Reuters clickbait route pretty soon here. But the point being, the biggest problem is storage. It's not even generating energy. And you can just look, if you Google the curtailments, which is when we don't generate as much energy as we could. So if you see wind turbines going and some of them aren't, it's because literally there is nothing you can do with that energy that it would generate. Same goes for solar. And the amount of energy being curtailed in California alone is massive. It's a huge chunk. So when you look at that, you go, like, storage is really the problem, I think. Or not the problem, but the challenge. So yeah, it's great that they're going to have the 380 megawatt hours. Is that what it's called? 380 megawatt hours?
Yeah, of storage.
Yeah.
So Gravitricity, on that note, this is one of these gravity storage things where they build this long tunnel and then, you know, let the weight drop down to gather energy from it and then lift it back up during the day. Oh, there it goes. They got a little animation on the site. They just raised $400 million
Cool.
in a what, like a Series 2 funding or whatever. It's not on here, but I saw it yesterday somewhere.
Wow.
So yeah, I mean, we're starting to see some more efforts like this. I mean, what I think is cool about this is they can find old mine shafts and old, you know, already drilled for oil and gas or whatever, and just use this as a weight thing.
How cool would that be if they were able to repurpose oil rigs with gravity energy storage? That would be amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And while I'm already up here, I had pulled this up. So in a first, according to the New York Times, renewable energy is poised to eclipse coal in the U.S. this year. Wow. And that's partly because of the pandemic and the way, you know, our use of energy has changed. But
yeah, coal's been on a rapid decline for a long time. Do they have a chart of that? Because it's actually natural gas that's been eating coal's lunch forever.
Yeah.
So coal is I mean, almost dead at this point, really.
But
being that it's the most polluting type of energy, I'd say it's a good thing.
Yeah. That and Tim's burps, you know.
I don't even burp that much. Come on.
All Iowans burps.
Yeah. Iowans burps.
Yeah, that's the interesting thing about that whole thing. So that stoked that we're seeing that I'll just say energy storage, gravity fed is super interesting, I think. But I don't know why it hasn't taken off more. Because there's so many different ways, you know, that people are doing that. Nevada would be a great place, actually, to do the gravity train thing, where it's just like what you're doing there conceptually, but instead of digging a 5-mile deep hole, you just run it up a mountain, you know, and it's the same concept, and it'd probably be easier to implement and cheaper and all that. But yeah, storage is really where
I covered that fairly recently with the flow batteries. I kind of looked at the same idea of the curtailment and everything, being able to store it. I think, I mean, you know, if you had $1 billion burning a hole in your pocket, that might be one of the places you'd want to put it. And that seems like an up and coming thing.
And this gets to a video I'm doing. I've been working on for a little while on virtual power plants, which is the concept of instead of having centralized infrastructure for energy, you have decentralized infrastructure. And there's actually some really cool utilities in the United States that are doing different things, like people actually getting paid to own a Tesla Powerwall. And the cool bit there is, yes, like Tesla Power Packs and then soon to be Mega Packs and all that. Yeah, great, but it's still giant centralized infrastructure. So if you think of somewhere that gets hit with hurricanes or more natural, just difficult weather, like I talked to Green Mountain Power up in Vermont, and yeah, a tree will go down and cut off power to an entire part of the state. And so even if you had giant battery storage in a central location, it wouldn't help because it would be cut off. So they talked about this concept they called islanding, where imagine if like everyone in a neighborhood had power walls and the utility technically owns them. Like the people don't even own them, but they just like gave them to them for free or cheap. And then if a tree goes down in a storm and cuts off the main connection point, now that community still has power because maybe you have a small substation like in the neighborhood that coordinates where all that energy goes and it shares it amongst the houses. Like I like the gravity idea and the giant mega packs and power packs because I think it's all necessary. Same with nuclear. Like you definitely need nuclear if you want to have a zero emission future. There's no way around it, I don't think. But there are so many interesting different ways that you can do things that aren't just giant centralized infrastructure.
Well, I think
is that kind of like smart grids? Same idea, sort of.
Yeah. And in fact, just there's so many things you can do, and the model is so much more resilient if everybody has their own battery versus having this mass, whatever the case may be, battery, gravity, etc.
Yeah.
Well, there's something, it clicked for me. It was only probably 2 years ago when I was really looking into buying an electric car, and it was the most I don't know, freeing thought to realize if I had solar power on my roof and I had my own battery pack, that like I would be able to just like generate my own power to drive my car. And I mean, I don't know why it like suddenly clicked. I know it's a total, literally it's your reality, Ben, but like I'm just like, wow. And then it makes you realize if everyone did that, how, I mean, and just how feasible it is actually.
Well, an interesting bit about this is that in a lot of countries in the world, a lot of more developing places, that is the cheapest and best option. So centralized infrastructure in certain, developing countries is just not even a possibility. But I literally can buy the stuff and install it on my house wherever I live in the world, and I'm good. I don't need anyone else for any of this stuff. Drop Starlink on there, and I've got my own connection. Get some vertical aeroponic gardens, and I've got my own food. Get these hydro panels, I've got my own water. Like literally, you can be like off grid for probably cheaper and easier than it ever has been. And the thing that always resonates to me is, I'm sure, I don't know why there's this negative sentiment out there around this being like some hippy dippy stuff from California. Like there is nothing freer and more empowering than being independent of everyone else. Like if that's not the most like libertarian idea in the world, then I don't know what is.
I was thinking while you said that, I'm amazed that this, as independence minded as Americans tend to be, I'm surprised that this isn't more popular and more talked about,
Yeah, I never understood how it became hippy dippy. Like wasn't it Reagan that installed the first solar panels on the White House?
No, it was Carter.
And
then Reagan took him down.
Oh.
Damn hippies.
Actually, I don't know if I may be wrong about that. I think Carter might have had like a solar water heater up there.
Oh,
cool. I don't know if it was solar panels, but it had some kind of solar system.
Okay.
Those are super cool too. I've been looking at those. There's different ways to do it, but the solar batch water heater, dude, this stuff is fascinating, and you can do it at your house in like suburbia. It doesn't have to be in some freaking compound on Mount Carmel in Waco, right?
Yeah.
Well, and I know I say this all the time, but that whole attitude of for those that don't live in the United States, there's a very like America, attitude that you can have where I'll go ahead and say it's probably the people that oftentimes drive large pickups that might be rolling coal, things like that. I do not understand how they can be anti-solar and anti-electric, like specifically Tesla. That's like literally an American company.
The most American, yeah.
With more torque than their truck. So if you want to be like, oh, that little wussy. No, this thing's more torque than your truck. It's more cool in that sense. And I could literally plug it into a coal power plant. So if you're a fan of coal, guess what? This is like, you could work at a coal power plant and run this thing on coal if you want, or you can have it be running off the sun. Like, how much more America can you get than that? Like, America sun, American batteries, American car. Like,
yeah. Well, and to your point, we're not importing oil from another country to turn into gasoline for my car.
Right.
Even if it's coming from coal, that coal is down the road. It's not in another country. It is the most nationalistic view of things. You're totally right. And one of the ironic things I saw just recently is this was from Business Insider, so no surprise, was that they were talking about the infrastructure for EVs isn't quite there yet. And I'm like, how do you, like, you are in a building when you said that. When you said those words, you were in a room. That room has electricity to it.
Yeah.
That room has EV infrastructure already.
Yeah.
Like you
that
can
room
charge
does not
your
have
car.
a gas pump in it, most likely.
Dude, people, yeah.
Most likely
so
where your
dumb.
car is parked right now does not have a gas pump.
Right.
But
Right.
it can have an electric station.
So dumb. Yeah, exactly. I think I did the math on that, and it was kind of tongue in cheek, but it was like there are, I forget, it was like 1,000 times more EV charging points in the U.S. than there are gas stations.
Right.
And it's because every house has something like 35 electrical outlets. So there you go. There's 35, gas stations for electric cars right there.
Yeah. Well,
I think people think you need this supercharger to charge it, but it's wrong. You definitely don't.
Yeah. No, that's what I always tell people. Is like, well, where do you charge it? And I'm like, I see 6 power outlets in this room.
Yeah. Any one of these will do.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
I mean, when it comes down to it. Can I just throw everybody for a loop for just a second?
Yeah,
Because
please.
this literally just came through on my phone in this little Apple News thing. We were talking about the X37B launch coming up. Apparently, according to this Wired article, one of the experiments that's on this is an experiment into space-based solar power.
Oh, yeah.
We've seen that before, right? Where they would beam it down.
We haven't.
Yeah, so it says...
I think we've actually seen it.
Yeah, they're going to beam it down with microwaves.
Yeah, that's right.
I don't know that this has actually been done before, but I did a video on space-based solar power one time because, I mean, everybody's argument against solar is that you can't collect it at night. Well, you could totally collect it at night if you had,
right?
In theory.
right.
Well, but you don't need to collect it. Like we were just talking about, collecting it isn't the problem. Like we have way more. We are already collecting way more than we can use.
Yeah.
So storage is really the challenge.
Yeah.
Well, anyway, we were talking about this earlier, and this just came through, and I was like, oh, that's cool.
But it would be neat if you could have a consistent, reliable, where you didn't need storage. It was just 24/7, or maybe the amount of storage you need is minimal. Yeah.
Yeah, because it's consistent power. Yeah. Yeah, that thing always confuses me a little bit. It just seems a little like, how could that possibly, think about how much it costs to put something in space. Like, how can it be cost effective to send solar panels up in space, convert it into microwaves, shoot it back down to Earth, have another solar, microwave converting station, yada, yada, yada. Like, how can it be worth it?
Storage.
I got it.
Yeah.
It's not, because that's not what they're doing. It's the 5G coronavirus controller. That's what it is. It's the mothership. I'm telling you.
Or they're just going to start laser beaming us in the head.
Yeah. Yeah.
Space lasers.
Wasn't that a plot to a Star Wars movie?
Isn't that the plot to every Star Wars movie? Hey, thanks for checking us out, guys. I hope you enjoyed this clip from our podcast.
We do a weekly show here on YouTube, so make sure to subscribe to Our Ludicrous Future, where we discuss all the things that are going to make our future totally ludicrous.
You can join us here on YouTube or at any of your favorite podcast places. Plus, if you want to get some behind-the-scenes stuff and join a cool community, you can help support the channel at patreon.com. Thanks a lot.
Thanks, guys.